In the last episode, we explored something foundational, that what we call reality is often filtered through an internal program built from experience, memory, and repetition. And for many people, the natural next thought is, if I can see it, then I should be able to change it, right? But this is where something very interesting happens because real life doesn't respond to insight the same way we expect it to. You can understand yourself deeply and still find yourself repeating the same pattern. And that creates a question. Why does awareness not immediately equal change? Have you ever had this moment? You are inside a situation where something in you is happening automatically, and at the same time, another part of you is watching it unfold. It almost feels like two layers exist at once. One part is fully inside that reaction, and the other part is observing it and thinking, I know I shouldn't be doing this again. And yet, here we are. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode with me, Ani. So, you are both inside the pattern and aware of it at the same time. And still, awareness alone does not stop it. And this is where confusion begins. Because logically, understanding should create change, but internally, it doesn't always work the same way. And strangely, physics give us a way to sense the same paradox. Let me give you an example of black holes. There is also a separation between what can be seen and what can be actually reached. From the outside, we can observe everything that is allowed to be observed: mass, motion, gravitational effect, the way space itself bends around it. But beyond a certain boundary, something changes. Information no longer behaves in a way that can be directly accessed from our frame of reference. Not necessarily because it disappears, because it crosses a threshold where the rules of access are no longer the same. And in a very subtle way, awareness inside the human mind behaves similarly. It can observe what is happening within you, it can detect the pattern, it can name it, describe it, even fully understand it, but observation is not the same as intervention. So just like black holes, there is a gap between seeing something and being able to reach the mechanism that produces it, which brings us to something deeper. We usually assume that to know something is to have control over it, but both psychology and physics suggest otherwise. You can observe a system without being able to access its source. You can understand a pattern without being able to interrupt it in the moment it is unfolding. You can become fully aware of something and still remain inside it while it continues. And black holes push this idea to its limits. They force physics to confront questions we are still struggling with. What happens to information when it crosses into a place where it can no longer be retrieved in the same way? And that question mirrors something deeply human. Just because you can see the pattern does not mean you currently have access to that level where pattern is being created. Understanding happens in the conscious mind, but patterns are not stored in the conscious mind alone. They live deeper in our emotional memory, in our nervous system responses, learned safety mechanisms, embodied reactions. So when a familiar situation happens, the body responds first, before interpretation, before reflection, before awareness can fully catch up. And this is why the experience feels so paradoxical. You can understand something perfectly in theory and still find yourself acting against that understanding in real time, because understanding is not the layer that executes behavior. It is the layer that observes behavior. For example, you may know you don't want to overgive in relationships, but in the moment someone needs something from you, your body may already lean towards saying yes before you think, before you choose, before you decide. Or you may know you want consistency in love, but when consistency actually appears, something in you feels uncertain, even uneasy, because it is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar does not register as neutral to the nervous system. It often registers as unsafe. So the system defaults to what it already knows, how to survive. And in that moment, insight exists, but it is not the operating force. It is only observation arriving after execution has already begun. So, what you call you in reflection and what you call you in reaction are not operating from the same level. One is seeing the pattern and the other one is producing it, and neither are in conflict. They're simply working at different speed in the system. And here is where something subtle becomes visible. You cannot fully observe a pattern while still being completely identified with it, because the moment of observation is still happening inside the same structure that created the pattern. So awareness does appear, but it appears within the system it is trying to see, which is why insight feels incomplete, change feels delayed, repetition continues, because awareness is emerging inside something already in motion, like trying to see the ocean clearly while it's still inside the wave. So, if awareness doesn't immediately change the program, what does it actually do? Something far quieter, something so subtle that you might miss it if you weren't looking. Change rarely begins with a breakthrough. It begins with a pause. You're in the middle of a familiar reaction, and for the first time, something interrupts that momentum. Not the emotion, not the situation, just the certainty. A small voice notices, this feels familiar. I've been here before. This isn't happening for the first time. Your heart may still be racing. Your body may still want to react in exactly the same way. The old program is still running, but something else has entered that picture, the observer. And that changes everything, because for the first time, you're no longer completely identified with the reaction. Part of you is experiencing it, another part is witnessing it. And in that tiny little gap between the two, space appears. Not freedom, not transformation, just that tiny little space. It's almost like watching a black hole from distance. The black hole hasn't changed. Its gravity is still immense. Its pull is still there. But now you can see the force acting on everything around it. The invisible has become visible. And once something becomes visible, you can begin to understand its influence. Awareness works in the same way. It doesn't erase the gravity of old pattern overnight. It reveals the force that have been quietly shaping your reality all along. So perhaps awareness was never meant to erase the pattern. Perhaps its first purpose was simply to illuminate it, because what is illuminated can no longer operate completely unseen. And what can no longer operate unseen begins to lose its absolute power, not in a single moment, but through hundreds of moments. Thousands of moments. Every time you notice instead of automatically becoming, every time you pause instead of immediately reacting, every time you remember that you are witnessing the pattern and not simply living inside it. Physicists still debate what happens to information inside a black hole. Does it disappear? Is it transformed? Or has it been there all along, encoded in a way that we're only beginning to understand? Maybe personal transformation asks a similar question. When awareness enters your life, your old patterns don't simply vanish. At first, they still appear, they still pull, they still repeat themselves, but something fundamental has already changed. The information has changed. The pattern is no longer hidden. It has entered awareness, and once information becomes available to consciousness, the system can begin slowly and imperfectly recognize itself, not because awareness forces change, but because nothing remains exactly the same once it's been truly seen. Perhaps that is one of the deepest lessons shaped by both psychology and physics. Reality changes when hidden information is revealed, not instantly, not magically, but irreversibly. So, my lovelies, I want to thank you for being here, for lending me your ears, and being part of this journey with me. If this episode resonated with you, please do like, share, comment. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And if you are enjoying this season, don't forget to share it with someone who might need to hear this conversation. Because awareness isn't the destination, it's the moment hidden information becomes visible. And once information is revealed, reality can never look quite the same again. So until next time, stay fierce, stay bold, and always go beyond the mind.